Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's 12:30 on a Friday afternoon here in New South Wales. That's midday in South Australia, 2:30 in New Zealand. Let's just forget about it. It's 12:30 in New South Wales on Friday afternoon, which means that People to People are live here on Facebook, which is a bit controversial these days in Australia, and YouTube. And LinkedIn these days as well. So welcome. What we're doing today is we're going to update you on the employment marketplace. Now, I am actually fresh from the People to People New South Wales Strategy Day yesterday, where we're actually talking about a lot of the things that we've been talking about on this broadcast over the last year or so, and we're forecasting for what should be a good 2021. Although my corporate reputation was completely destroyed. Our amazing race, which we had to do afterwards. And I think I've got a picture here, Remy, which is, tragic. So let's take that off now. So we won't be exploring that anymore. But that was part of the Amazing Race. Highly recommended. I'll make sure I included a link to the Amazing Race crew that actually helped us out with that, so you can check it out for yourself. It's a great corporate event in the comments below. So what are we doing today? Well, we'll cover off our normal numbers section. This week we've got a couple of interesting facts. Then what we'll do is we'll be chatting to Manish from our P2P HR solutions team. Then we'll be chatting with Kath Kennedy with the blog of the week. And finally, we'll be our regular Twitter poll. We had some interesting results from last week. We'll share those with you, and we've got a new interesting poll for this week as well. So let's start though with our regular numbers section. So this week, what we're going to cover off is, well, there's three things I want to talk about. Firstly, just and really quickly, because we've talked 2 weeks ago, we discussed the Internet Vacancy Index. We saw how that changed over the break. The numbers were actually released yesterday by the ABS, and so Remy, if you just want to pop those up, it's the table. Yeah, and you can see in this table, it's all good news. The trend was up 24.1% annually, which is brilliant, 1.5% over the month. And even when you seasonally adjust those numbers for January, you can see that it's up 11.1% year on year. That is a very good sign, and it does tell us that the Australian economy is very much in recovery. But there's a couple of other graphs that I wanted to show you this week. The one that I thought was quite profound, because the stock market is all over the news at the moment with the way that the stock market is traveling and continually increasing. And what I thought I'd show you, and we've got that on the screen here, is the inverse relationship between the unemployment rate and the stock market. So what this essentially shows you is it's clearly an inverse relationship with the unemployment rate. And these are US numbers, by the way. The unemployment rate is the orange line. The purple line is the S&P 500 level. So you can see when the stock markets crash, the unemployment level goes up, crash, up. So you can see in early 2000s around the GFC, where the two lines diverge then, and then you can see more recently as unemployment has been trending down and the stock market has been going up. The reason I'm showing this to you is because that line, where we can see that the unemployment is still very high. And that number, by the way, 14.1% in the US, is the highest unemployment since the Great Depression in the US. But the stock market didn't react in anywhere near the same way, obviously because of COVID. But that tells me, with the stock market has not now declined, either one of two things is going to happen. The stock market will go down, which I don't think it will, or unemployment will improve remarkably. And I think that's where we're headed. So just keep an eye out on that relationship. And that's thanks to, by the way, Chris Preston from Cabot Wealth is where I actually got that graph from. The next one I wanted to show everybody is the speed of the employment recovery in the US. And this is, so how long is it going to take? Because I thought it was related to the last graph. How long will it take before the unemployment levels are back to pre-COVID levels? So they got down to as low as 4% in the US. And what you're looking at here is the forecast. The red line is the forecast global coronavirus recession and the recovery. So Janet Yellen, the new Fed Reserve Chief in the US, said that it could be back to pre-pandemic levels by 2022. So you can see that prediction there. The blue line, though, is the 2008-09 Great Recession in the US. And you can see how long it took for the unemployment or the employment levels to return to pre-recession levels after the GFC. So it took a long time. So hopefully, given the two graphs we've seen there, that we're going to see a recovery in the employment market quickly. Although I can see some from the comments here that Axel is saying that no, the stock market's going to crash. So you'd be pleased to know that I am wearing a bull and a bear cufflink here today, Axel, for both of these graphs that we've seen here. But who really knows what's going to happen? And the fact that I can see Axel's comments there is a good segue for me to actually mention that if you do have any comments, we can see them real time. Please pop them in Facebook or in LinkedIn or in YouTube, and we'll get to them real time. So that's it for the numbers section. Next week, we'll take a closer look at the unemployment numbers, which I think have only just been released as well in Australia, and dive deeper into those as well. But now let's move on, I suppose, and take the time and talk to Manish Jowhary from our P2P HR solutions, and he's got a couple of fabulous opportunities to talk to us about. Manish, good afternoon. How are you?
Mark, I'm very well. How are you?
I'm very well. I can see that you're on your mobile phone there, which is fabulous. It's great.
Making the most of technology as we can.
Yes, indeed. So you've got three opportunities to speak to us about. Do you want to tell us about those?
I do. I'll start with the coolest one. And funny enough, it's actually an air conditioning role. It's an aircon technical specialist that we are looking for. It's to be part of both the pre and the post sales process for our client. Our client is a multinational, well-known brand based in Homebush. Role is fairly straightforward. It's both on-site and off-site at the same time. On-site, especially for the pre-sales, and off-site when it's the post-sales. So supervising installation is quite part of this role, and then coming back with reports. The aim of this role is also quite a lot around customer satisfaction.
Okay, and I've just with a comment there. Is this a service or sales focused role?
Sales focused.
Okay, great. Any other benefits that for taking on this role?
You get access to all the cool perks that the client will offer. You have on-site parking offered, and the salary is very competitive as well.
Okay, excellent, good. And the other positions you've got for us?
All right. So the second one is the manager for accounts payable. It's a very sizable role, I must say. Obviously, given that it's a manager role, we're looking for at least 5 years worth of experience. Somebody that is obviously very efficient, fast, but has also worked in a multinational organization dealing with high volume work. This role will also work closely with the overseas BPO with which the client works. Looks after cash flow management, expenses, review, audit, payroll processes. We're talking about invoicing and liaising with suppliers when it's issues relating to invoicing as well, and working very closely to the seniors in the finance team.
Okay, great. All right. Okay. And with that particular role then, so do you need to have management experience prior?
Definitely, because I think, well, this person will be looking after a team of people based locally, and also working very closely with the BPO based overseas. So definitely somebody that's got people management experience, workflow management experience is great. Having an experience in SAP and ERP definitely helps big time. I'm sure SAP, everybody knows what it is, but in case you don't know what ERP is, I think it's enterprise resourcing. So that's very important. And like I said,
we've got a comment here too, Manish, as well, that says if it's managing a team, how many people are actually in that team?
Locally, it's a team of 4. Overseas, it's a big team, I suppose, because the overseas team does all the processing and admin work. The local team does more of the core audits, reviewing, verifying functions, as well as reconciliation and reporting. And of course, I think having an Australian degree plays a very important role in this particular position, because this person would then be very familiar with our local accounting, audits, and reporting practices, which is quite key. But yeah, and of course, competitive salary as well for this one.
Okay, fabulous. All right, and one more. You've got lots of jobs on at the moment. You're a busy man.
Absolutely. The last one is actually a very interesting role. It's a product administrator working for a particular product of this client. This role involves managing stock take as well as forecasting of the inventory for this particular product line. New products come in, you got to register these products, but it's mainly used by internal staff. So for testing purposes, marketing purposes, providing feedback, internal staff can use and review and provide feedback. So given the size of the organization, there's a lot of movements with these in-house products. So we do need people that can manage the ins and outs of this inventory. So key skills, I would say, would be reporting, would be fast and efficient, very important, with a high attention to detail, as well as somebody that has got a great attitude about just go with the flow sort of role.
Okay, great. All right, I think you've just answered that question. So Sarah online there says, what are the key skills needed for that particular job?
Fantastic. Well, just a quick recap. So I think fast and efficient with attention to detail, some basic to intermediate reporting skills, very important, and somebody that is just very switched on and very proactive in just making sure the role keeps on going in very fast. And having experience also in SAP in this role is quite beneficial.
Yeah, fabulous. All right. So all of these 3 jobs are all with the one client, aren't they? They're for one customer of ours, and they're all it's based in Sydney Olympic Park, multinational. Yep.
Yeah. Yes.
And if somebody wanted to talk to you in more detail and in person, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Emailing me is probably the best way. I'm very good with my email. I don't think I've ever not responded to an email within the day. So Manish at people2people.com.au is the best way.
Fantastic. All right. Well, I'm sure Remy will have those details up in the comments there as well. And I can see that he's been very efficient and he's popped up the roles as well. So if you want to see the actual positions advertised on our website, you can click those links and go through and apply to those. But always get in touch with Manish as well. Fantastic. All right. Great to see you online, Manish. It's been a while. I think it was about 6 months ago we had you on, wasn't it?
Same here, Mark. Yeah, definitely. Last time was, I believe you were away and I did it with Kath.
Oh, so we've never even talked before. Oh my God.
Fantastic. Okay. But no, this is very much enjoyable. But thank you for having me.
Okay, no worries. All right, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, Manish. So now let's move on, and we're going to actually go and have a chat to the New South Wales director, Catherine Kennedy. And Kath was with me in that terrible. Well, you weren't in the actual suit, were you, Kath? You were with me at the strategy day yesterday, and I debated whether I should actually put that picture up today, but I think I made a mistake seeing it. Yeah.
Not your most flattering picture, I have to say, Mark. I'm much more comfortable seeing you there in a tie, which is your native. Yes, that's what I feel like. You were born that way, I think. So I feel more comfortable that way.
All right. So, Kath, you're going to highlight one of our blogs today, which is negotiating or ongoing flexibility. So sort of everything that we've come to expect from COVID, but negotiating that process going forward. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, obviously nearly every organisation found themselves with new work practices last year in the midst of the pandemic, and some of it was government enforced, and there was sort of just a bit of a on-the-fly sort of flexibility that was agreed. But as we're returning to some degree of normality, I thought I'd just share a few insights about how to negotiate that ongoing flexibility if that's something that you're looking for. So we're seeing, and it's a very hot topic for job seekers, but we're seeing the full range of organisations having full flexibility and really embedding that moving forward, right through to a request for everybody to come back to the office and be back in the office exactly the same way that they were pre-COVID. And then obviously there's all, I guess, a whole range of variations in between. So this blog, which is actually wasn't written by me, it was written by Peter, who's our colleague in South Australia, but it's got some really good advice about how to approach that conversation with your employer. So I thought I'd just highlight a couple of the key points from that. So look, the first thing that I would say that should really frame all of the conversation should be that you approach it in the context of what is right for the business, not just what's right for you. So how is this flexibility that you're requesting going to benefit the business, and how is it going to continue to meet the needs of the business? So as a part of that, I think you need to be really clear about the objectives of your role and the key deliverables of your role, and be able to explain or articulate how you're going to make sure that you can still meet those objectives. For that to happen, you've got to have clarity around what your objectives are. So that's probably a conversation that needs to happen prior. But I think to very much approach that conversation with your manager in terms of how it will benefit the business, not just how it would benefit you. And it could be something as simple as that you will have less time commuting, you're therefore less stressed, you get to do some exercise, that means you might be more productive, or you might be able to take a client call at a time where you'd ordinarily be standing on a busy train and couldn't have those sorts of conversations. So I think that's really key. The other thing that I would say is to make sure that you approach this with some degree of formality. So actually arrange a meeting with your manager face-to-face. Don't get them on the fly at the lift as they're making their cup of tea. Make sure that you sit down face-to-face and that you have got a plan to put forward. You've got a proposal, but that needs to be with a spirit of cooperation. So naturally, there's going to be a bit of back and forth to make sure that it works for everybody. So just being understanding that you probably have to find some middle ground. And then generally these things work best that you are open to it being for a trial period. So you might agree to a plan and say, look, let's assess this in 6 weeks or in 3 months or whatever time frame is appropriate to make sure that it's meeting everybody's needs as well. But there's a lot more detail in the blog that I'm sure Remy's probably already shared.
Yep, already done that. It's up there in the comments, which is great.
Yeah, excellent. So if anyone's got any questions, this really is very topical at the moment, and there is just so many different ways of approaching flexibility, even what flexibility means in the eyes of a job seeker and the eyes of this employer compared to the next employer. So it's really, I would definitely reinforce that as well, is that sometimes assumptions can be made. I mean, the one thing that I've noticed during this time is that flexibility in the past was often seen as a benefit. It's now seen as something that is expected and normal. But I think if you're an employee and you're in an environment, that you should still give that conversation the gravity that's required. That if you make an assumption that, oh yeah, I can do that, or this is what everybody is doing this now, it probably is not the right way to go, because there is still some inertia with some of our clients, for example, that are requiring everybody to go back to the office. Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you dig a little deeper, it's not just because they want everyone in the office, it's because they need to be confident or assured that they're still going to get the same outcomes. And so this conversation means that you need to be able to articulate that and then demonstrate that happens over time. Fabulous. Thank you. I keep saying fabulous and fantastic. Fabulous. We have to put a sign up somewhere where I'm not allowed to actually say that. But thank you again for joining us, and I encourage everybody. So I encourage everybody to actually go and have a look at the blog, put some comments there, engage in that conversation. It is very much a hot topic. And thanks again for joining us this afternoon, Kath. No worries. Cheers. Thank you. Right. Okay. All right. So we're coming to the end now. And so that means that the last thing that we'll cover off is our Twitter poll this week. And last week we were asking about whether you should wear a tie. So here are the results. So there we go. So it popped on and off there. So 29.8%. You'll notice there's a little grey tick there because I pulled this picture directly from my Twitter feed, and that's what I voted. But I'm obviously way outnumbered. 29.8% say that yes, ties at work definitely or should be part of the work attire, but a solid 70.2% said no, they shouldn't be. Now, we've actually run this poll before, back in 2017. And Remy, have you got those numbers? And you can see that it has shifted by about 5%.
No, this was from, you can see, September 1st, 2017. Do you think wearing a tie is the norm for the office workers in Australia and New Zealand? And it turned out that it was 65% said no, 34.9% said yes. So it is definitely, the trend continues in the last 3 years. So this week's poll is actually around social media. I thought it was topical because Facebook have obviously banned the news sites in Australia this week. And we've now got the new poll up, and we've had one vote by the looks, 2 votes. Is social media a good place to find a job? And it's 100% no so far. What's your view? We'll come back next week and we'll have a look at that. I think the last poll we had about 800 or so votes. We had about 700 of our audience last week. Let's see if we can get the same sort of number this week and see whether social media is actually an appropriate place to get a job. So that's it, everybody. Once again, it's been a pleasure to be with you this Friday afternoon. We will be back again at 12:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Saving Time next Friday with another employment and market update. Until then, have a good week.